G'day, hello. Thank you for joining. Looks like we have a few people watching already, which is great. I just thought I'd start a few minutes early and see if anyone has any questions. I might do this. I'm starting to learn a bit more about streaming, which if you have any questions, I'd love to know before we begin. And it doesn't have to be about La Catedral, even just about harmony or practicing or anything like that. I'd love to hear from you. And I do want to let you know there is about a maybe 10 to 15, maybe to 20-second delay between the time I speak and the time you hear it. So if you do ask a question, I'm a little bit slow to answer. That's probably going to be the main reason. There's a bit of a delay with live streaming, and if for those of you who don't know, I'm in Australia and we have notoriously slow internet, so I apologize for that. I'm doing the best I can with the internet that we have. It should be upgraded sometime this year, so when that happens, then I'll be able to stream with higher quality and probably with less delay between the stream and from me to you sort of thing. So that'll be a little better. But for now, this is what I can do. Please let me know if you can hear me, see me okay. If you can see, I don't think you'll be seeing the score anymore, but I will put the score up again soon. We'll be looking at the piece La Catedral. I did play this yesterday in a live stream concert that I did for the Melbourne Guitar Festival. Played this and the beautiful tremolo. Una limosna por el amor de Dios. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you if you were able to join. Well, we have 5 minutes left, so I might start getting the screen up and getting things going. I'll double check, see, sometimes the comments don't show up. Here in the control room, we'll see. Alright. Cool. So I'll be talking about La Catedral, which is a fairly advanced piece, but I want to do it in a way that that can be applicable for anyone who's studying harmony. So I'll try to do that and to so that you can learn excuse me, so you can learn some sort of you can learn some ideas that can be applied really to any piece that you're analyzing or studying or learning. I will talk about things in that way. I'll try to go back to the basics with everything, because that's where it all comes from, even with harmony, just like with our playing. When we think about interpretation, there's like maybe 3 or 4 basic things: tone, rhythm, dynamics. If those things aren't solid, if those things aren't in place, then everything else can sort of crumble. So having a solid foundation is really important. And it's the same with harmony. I think being fluent with the triad is a really important aspect. Being able to think in thirds is a really important aspect of harmony. And once you're fluent with that, then you can really start to see the harmonic structure behind things. So we have a few minutes left, so I'll wait a couple more minutes and then we'll start with La Catedral by Agustin Barrios. For those of you who don't know about this piece, It's La Catedral means the cathedral, and it's in 3 movements, though it was originally composed in 2, with the second and third movements. Andante religioso was the first movement, and then Allegro solemne was the second, and basically you have like kind of an introduction and an allegro, and then the prelude was composed many years later. I think maybe 7 years later. So it's there's some people sort of debate whether or not to even add to play this first movement. I just find it so beautiful that I like to play it anyway, even though structurally you sort of end up with an introduction to an introduction. You get an introduction and then another introduction and then the allegro. So, you know, structurally it's kind of a bit odd, but I just think it's so beautiful. So I just want to play it. All right, I think we've got about a minute left, so we might begin. Please let me know if you have questions at any time throughout. I'll try to answer you. There is a delay between me and you, probably about maybe up to 20 seconds delay. So that's just sort of the nature of live streaming a little bit. So I might be a bit slow answering your question. It might take me 20 or 30 seconds to get to answering it. Just I'm not ignoring you. All right. So I think we can sort of make a start. So we're going to analyze La Catedral. And yeah, here we go. Let's begin. It's 5 o'clock in Australia. So we're going to start the analysis. So the first movement, the prelude, is an absolutely gorgeous piece of music. I'll play a little bit of it for you just in case you're not familiar with it. Okay, so that's basically the general idea of it. It just continues with that same texture and same sort of basic mood for the whole movement. And then it goes to a second movement, Andante religioso, which has a bit more of a sort of a march-like character. And then it goes to the third and final movement, the Allegro solemne. Yeah, beautiful piece. One of my all-time favorites. I did play it yesterday in a live stream concert that the Melbourne Guitar Festival ran, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, I've been playing this piece for a long time, and I recently had a request from a new member of Harmony That Matters to analyze this piece. So they are from Nanjing in China, which is really cool to have someone in China. We have members in Europe and Australia and China now as well. Oh, and the US too, actually. Yeah, USA as well, Europe and Australia and China. All right, so let's start here. So the beautiful thing about this prelude is that you can actually learn it as a chord progression. Although most of it is in very high, in the very high positions of the instrument, but you can learn it as a chord progression, and you can do that through a method I call chunking, where you take the individual notes of the chord, you put them all together into the chord shape, and you play it as a chord. So this is a really great way to learn this piece. Once you have the chord, I would recommend that you take as much information as possible. If your score doesn't have fingerings, put the fingerings in. If it doesn't have the position, you should put the position in too. So this would be in the 11th position, first finger on F sharp on the 3rd string. So you can write, in Roman numerals if you want, 11, which is X, I, 11th position for the first chord so far. Okay, so you write the position in, write the fingering in, play it as a chord. That's the way you want to learn this piece. But from an analytical point of view, I want to talk about the actual analysis of each chord, what the chord is, giving it a label, so to speak. So the first chord here is what we need to do here, and I said I would go back to basics because it's really important that the basic foundations are there. We need to be able to stack these notes into thirds, 3 notes in thirds. So you can you might know what it is already, which is great, but if you don't, then there's a sort of a method you can use. So you want to be thinking in thirds, and the method you can do is, it's a little bit arbitrary, but I think when you're first doing this, it works quite well. You can take the first note, so in this case the first note is F sharp, because of the key signature, F sharp, and then you can start to stack in thirds. So F sharp, so if we went up a third, excuse me, if we went up a third, F sharp is 1, G is 2, and A is 3, so that's a third. So A would be the next note. So that tells us now, if we look at the rest of the notes, we want to see, is there an A in the rest of the measure, and there does not happen to be an A. So we can rule that out. It's not an F sharp chord, even though the first note is F sharp. So we can look at the next note, which is B. Alright, so if we stack in thirds, we have B, and then B, C, D would be next, and then D, E, F, and F sharp in this case. And there you go. I think we have found the chord. So because we have the notes B, D, and F, and we have 2 Fs in this case. We have a doubled F, and that's the result here. Alright, so if you want to have a go at that chord, you can get into the 11th position, 1 finger per fret, first finger on the 3rd string, the 11th position. Maybe I'll go to a full screen here so you can see my hands better. So if you want to play this chord, you go into the 11th position, 1 finger per fret, put your first finger on the F sharp on the 3rd string, your second finger on the 4th string, and your 4th finger on the 1st string. There's your chord. You're in the 11th position, 1 finger per fret. As long as you have that and you know what string each finger goes on, it shouldn't be too difficult to find that chord, even if you're not so used to going up into the higher positions. Okay, so there's the chord. It's B minor. We have a B, D, and an F sharp. So in case you're wondering, how do you know it's minor? It's all about this interval here. From B to D is a minor third. B and D, B up to D. If you know your scales, you would know that if you play a B minor scale, those are the first 3 notes, B, C sharp, D. If you were to play a B major scale, you would have B, C sharp, D sharp, and then that would make a D sharp would then make it a B major triad instead. So we found the notes of the triad. We've found that it's double the F sharp here. So that gives us the first chord, and incidentally it gives us the key of the piece. So if you want to figure out the key of a piece, because one thing you can do is look at the key signature, but that gives you still a couple of possibilities. So 2 sharps could be either D major or B minor. But if you look at the first and last chords, that should give you a pretty good idea. 95% chance that those 2 chords will be the chord of the home key, the tonic key. So if we look at the last chord here, we do have a B in the bass, and then we have a D, and then we have 2 more B's. So B's and D's. So that's pointing pretty much to a B minor again. All right. So the key of B minor And that's partly what gives this piece such a sad quality. The title Saudade, Preludio Saudade, that sort of means like deep longing sadness or nostalgic sadness, or it's a hard word to translate apparently, so but it has a lot to do with sadness, deep sadness. So this key, just by putting something in B minor, you already have that sense of sadness. You think of like Sword's study in B minor. Which incidentally uses a lot of the same chords as this prelude. Okay, so there's the first chord. We want to think in thirds. We want to identify all those notes and make sure that they fit into that chord or that triad once we find the triad. And in terms of learning the actual chord that's in the music, you can look on the guitar. Sorry, you can look on the score, find the position on the guitar, and one finger per fret. Once you figure it out, once you figure out that chord shape, write in as much information as possible in the score. It's not cheating. It's actually, if you look at scores from, the 1800s, sometimes they had all of this information, the position you're in and the finger of each note and the string that you play on. It's not cheating to have fingerings in your scores in case you feel bad for doing it, because it's just going to slow you down. It's going to slow you, that will really slow you down. You just get frustrated. Put in all the information, use your score like a journal. Put in as much information as possible, like what I'm doing right now here. That could be an example of something you could do in your scores too. Okay. Any questions so far? Let me know, please. How are we doing with... All right. No questions yet. That's all right. So let's go on to the next chord, and I'm gonna move a little faster now because I don't want to take 5 or 10 minutes on each bar. I'll try and move a little faster, and you can always watch the replay back, and I'll leave this analysis here as a PDF document for you to look over as well and think about. I know harmony is just like a language, and there's lots to think about. So the second bar, this is where it already starts to get a little tricky. If we have a listen to the first bar, and then the second bar, it's a very, very unusual sounding chord. The first bar sounds like this as a chord. The second bar... So Barrios here is doing something called a suspension, or he's using a passing note which will resolve at a later time. He holds over this F sharp, which then resolves to the E in the melody. So if you have a listen now, that's a resolution there. So the passing note, which then resolves down, and then hear how that should, sound a bit more like a stable sort of chord. This sounds very unstable. Resolution. Okay, so he's got that. So that's going to influence how we analyze the chord, because what we really should do is analyze this chord here to know what the actual chord is. So if we stack in thirds again, I'll give you, maybe 10 seconds just to have a think about it. Can you stack these notes in thirds? I would give you longer if we were working one-on-one. I would just, let you go for it and go through it and take as much time as you need. But in this group setting, workshop setting, I'll just give you a bit of time. So that might be enough time if you got it. So the way to stack this one in thirds is starting on C sharp. And then we have E, which is that high note there. And then we have G, which is there. And then we have B as well, the open B there. So we have 4 notes now, which is no longer a triad as well. We're getting into a 7th chord here. When you have 4 notes that stack in thirds, you have a 7th chord. 3 notes that stack in thirds, you have a triad. Now don't worry, because it doesn't really get much more complicated than that if you're playing, you know, classical or romantic music. You know, pieces by Agustin Barrios, and so on. 3 notes stacked in thirds is a triad. 4 notes stacked in thirds is a 7th chord. Once you're fluent with triads and 7th chords, then you're good. So now we have to figure out, you know, we've got all of the notes here stacked in thirds, but we have to figure out what is the quality of this chord. So we have C sharp to E, which is a minor third. C sharp to E, minor third, and then we have a G, and we have an open B. A nice easy chord to play. If you want to play that chord, you can play it like this: C in the second position, C sharp, E, G, B, open G and open B. Beautiful chord, very mysterious chord. So I'll just tell you what this one is. It's C sharp, half diminished 7. So the reason it's that is because C sharp, E, G creates a diminished triad. C sharp, E, G. Diminished because we have a minor third and we have a diminished 5th above the root. C sharp to G, it's a diminished 5th. C sharp to G sharp would be a perfect 5th. We're lowering the G sharp to G natural for a diminished 5th, right? Or a tritone. And we have, so that creates a diminished triad, and then the B right at the top, from C sharp to B, is a minor 7th. So a minor 7th plus a diminished triad. So diminished triad plus minor 7th above the root is a half diminished 7th. If this were a B flat, then we would have a diminished 7th above C sharp, and therefore it would be called a fully diminished 7th. Right, with the B flat, like that, C sharp, E, G, B flat. But we have a B natural, so it's half diminished 7th. Okay, so we have B minor, first chord, oops, over here. And then we have C sharp, half diminished 7. So you can write a circle with a slash and then a 7. Now I would circle this F sharp because it's a passing note. It's not a note of the chord. C sharp, E, G, B. It's an F which resolves to the E. It's a 4-3 suspension, so it's a 4th above the root note of C sharp, which resolves to the 3rd, to the E. So if you go C, E, D, E, F, right, that's a 4th, that's the F, resolving down to the 3rd, to the E. So in terms of your interpretation, you could do a lovely decrescendo. You could crescendo into, oops, well, what happened there? I think my score just vanished. 1 second. Okay, looks like it crashed. Alright, here we go. Okay. So, you could do, as I said, a decrescendo for the resolution, and in the first bar you could do a crescendo up to the passing note, the dissonance. A passing note will, by nature, be dissonant. It will clash with the chord. So, and then resolution. Okay, so that's basically what's going on there. If we take a look at the next bar, you can look at the voice leading here, you know, looking at the notes from one bar going to the next. It's pretty much one chord per bar. But let's have a look here. If we see this B is staying the same, this G is staying the same, and this C sharp staying the same, the only thing that moves is the E going up to G. So in terms of your hand position, that means you're going to be staying in this position for quite a while. So once you find this first chord, this chunk here kind of stays there as a unit. 2 and 1 stays a unit, and then your third finger moves down to the E, and then in the next bar you go up to the G. So you're actually going 1 fret out of position. If you were in the 11th position and you go, if you want to find the G, if you're in the 11th position, on the first string you play D sharp, E, F, F sharp, right? So that's the 11th. Those are the 11th position notes. But to get the G, you have to stretch out of position a little bit. So it actually makes a slight technical difficulty. I know sometimes I can just miss that G because of that little stretch. So it's really important that you do stretch the finger. I'm just checking we're all running good still. No questions yet. Okay, I'll take that as a good thing. Yeah, please let me know if you do have questions anytime throughout this. I'd love to hear. Okay, so there's a little, going slightly out of position, right? So I'll take a note of that, out of position, to go up to that G. Okay, that's a little technical detail, and that means that you might have to be more conscious of that fourth finger stretching up. Okay, but let's take a look at the analysis of it. So the notes of this chord now. So I said that was a high G, and feel free, these high notes, if it helps to write them out at first for a little while until you get used to them. So that's a G. So is that note part of the chord? Because we looked here earlier, we saw that these 3 notes were all the same. This little unit down there. So we need to think of this G now, because this is the only note that moves in the next bar. So it does happen to be part of the chord here. Okay, so we're going back to a note of the chord. We did resolve from the F sharp to the E, but now the melody leaps up from E to G. So I like to do a little crescendo again, just to acknowledge that leap. Otherwise, in the melody we had stepwise motion or static motion. The F stayed and then it went down to E, one whole step, and then from E up to G, which is a third. So we have a little leap at the start. So there's already a little bit of drama right from the beginning, and you don't have to be too blatant about it. You could be a bit subtle if you wanted to, especially as the start of this pretty large piece. Okay, so we only have had 2 chords so far, the B minor and then C sharp half diminished 7 for these 3 bars that follow. C sharp half diminished 7th. Okay, so the chord in itself, a diminished chord by its nature, is symbolizes more tension, obviously, than the tonic chord. B minor is the tonic chord. It's in the key of B minor. So the diminished chord has more tension in it by nature already. And then the things that he's doing with the melody, against the harmony, he keeps this F sharp as a sort of a suspension. It's a 4th going down to a 3rd. It's a 4th, the F sharp's a 4th above C sharp, which resolves down to E. Alright, so I hope you're able to follow. Please do let me know if you have questions. We'll see. Okay, we have a few people watching. If you do have questions, I'd really love to know if you have questions about intervals or diminished triads or anything. But I hope it's all, kind of making sense so far. And I did stress earlier on how important it is to keep note taking when you're learning something. So if you're learning a piece, write down everything: positions, analysis, dynamics, things like this. I wrote the 4th finger goes out of the 11th position. It just helps so much. I think you make your practice way more valuable when you do that. Okay, so let's look at the next chord. So we've just done the first 4 bars, we go on to the next chord, back to here. So back to B minor. It's the same, exactly the same chord as the start. So I would, even make a mark of that, B minor again, in exactly the same voicing. So we've gone from the C sharp diminished, half diminished 7th chord back to B minor, so you can resolve a little bit. All right, and there you can see the first 4 bars going into the 5th, so we can start nice and soft on the tonic chord. Bit of a crescendo, bit of resolution, bit of a crescendo, bit of resolution again. It's almost like a pattern here of resolution, tension, resolution, tension again, resolution again in the 5th bar. The 6th bar is the same as the 2nd. So we get the C sharp half diminished 7th again. Alright, this time I'll write it in the shorthand, C sharp half diminished with the slash, and you can write 7 there if you want as well. So we've gone to that chord, and he's kept the F sharp again, the passing note again. So you could do the same thing, you could do a nice little crescendo going up to that chord. Oh, hold on 1 second. Sorry, I missed a little detail here, didn't I? So it's not exactly the same. This is where harmony can be very subtle. There is one note different, and it's this one here. So, okay, what he's doing here is quite complicated now, but let's discuss it. So this C sharp now is a D. So we have a slightly different chord. So if you wanted to learn this, you're now in the 12th position, and I'll show you this here. We now go to the 12th position, which I would indicate here. You can see there's a lot of markings, but if you use pencil, it's a little easier to sort of make it a bit neater. But 12th position now, and we have the first finger on D, which is on the 12th fret, second finger on G, also on the 12th fret, and then we sort of squeeze the 4th finger down, keeping it on the F sharp like that, yeah? I always think the position is really based on where the first finger is. So, the first finger right now is on the 12th fret, and we're squeezing the second finger onto the 12th fret as well, and then we have the F sharp on the 14th fret there. Okay, so that's that chord. So go back to C, yeah. Alright, so how do we work out this chord now? Because if we stack in thirds, it's going to be a little different. So let's have a look at this. It does sound very similar to what happened in this bar, except just that one note difference there. So what we have, if we stacked it in thirds, we get a very interesting chord here. We go G, B, D, F sharp. So we have 4 notes stacked in thirds. We can stack them all in thirds. Alright, so make sure you can see all those notes. There's G, there's B, there's D, and there's F sharp up the top. Okay, so we have a very unusual chord, which is G major 7. You can analyze it that way, G major 7. The way that I think of this, because this chord I don't think is functioning as a G major 7 chord. What I think is happening is that he's making the harmony G, and he's just keeping the F sharp on top, sustaining on top, giving a very similar effect to up here. So it's not really, the harmony's unfolding, and as it unfolds, he sort of accidentally hits a G major 7 chord. The voice leading is, or the function of this chord, you're not really hearing, G major 7 as a harmony in itself. It's more of as a result of the voice leading. So, all right. So we have. I'm just going to call it G major, and I would circle this F sharp again because it does function sort of like a passing note. I know I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit because I said it's G major 7 earlier, but you know, you can analyze it that way, but you sometimes need to look at the greater context and sort of see what's going on, and you know, you can really hear a lot of tension from and he resolves the melody in the same way as he did in the first 4 bars. That F goes down to E again. And then we have a couple of different notes in the next chord. So we get this G sharp starts to come in. Alright, so accidentals, if you see an accidental for an extended period of time, like for a whole measure, then it's probably quite significant. You might have chromatic notes being used as like passing, you know, something like that, or something like that, where it's just a very fleeting one. But this is quite a prominent accidental, this G sharp. So the G sharp is telling us, it's giving us a bit of a clue here. So if we stack in thirds, E, G sharp, B and D, we now get a new type of chord called a dominant seventh chord. So it's E7, E is the root there, E7. Alright. So a dominant 7th chord is going to, by its nature, have a lot of tension. And let's see what Barrios does next. Very interesting what he's doing in the next chord. I'm just going to, because I'm aware of time, I'm just going to walk you through a bit faster now. So now he's going to an A7 chord with an F sharp passing note. So A7 has the notes A, C sharp's in the key signature, E, and G. Okay, you can see all those notes here except the E. We've got the A in the bass, we have the C sharp here, we've got the G there. So we have 3 out of the 4. E is the 5th. Instead of using E, he's gone up to F sharp, making it nice and colourful, not so predictable. If I played it with the E, okay, so you can see how the F sharp really makes it very colourful, beautiful moment there. So again, we're intensifying, you know, we've gone from B minor to G chord with the F sharp, so a bit of tension, and then perhaps a sort of a slight resolution to the E7, but then the E7 goes up to the A7, and then the A7 is going to resolve to where we expect A7. So when we say dominant 7, it's the dominant of something. So A7 is the 5th chord above D major. So, and that's what we get in the next bar. We get a D major chord, which you can chunk like that. This has the position here, 10th position. So we have 1 on the 1st string, 3 on the 5th, 2 on the 3rd string, and 4 on the 4th string. There is a bit of a squeeze up. There's a bit of a squeeze up if we were 1 finger per fret. In the 10th position, our 4th finger would be on the 13th fret, but it's squeezed up on the 12th fret here alongside the 3rd finger to get that chord. That's actually it's actually E major shifted all the way up. Right, the tonic note is up here on the 1st string, and then if you play it up a position, you get F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, and D in the 10th position. So it's E major in the 10th position. You can think of it that way. If you don't have an open string, that means the chord is movable. It means you can move it around the fretboard, and you can learn a lot of chords in the process. Anyway, let me keep on talking about this. So D, F sharp, A, they are the notes we expect, and those are the notes he gives us, so we don't get any unexpected notes. I do have to stress, if a composer just gave you the expected notes all the time, it would be very boring. So that's why, a piece that's harder to describe is probably more musically expressive and more interesting than one that's really easy to describe. Although I don't want to say a piece that's easy to describe is not expressive, because there are some very minimalistic pieces that are beautiful as well. But in general, there's a lot going on in this prelude, and that's what makes all these interesting little flavors. So we've gone from these interesting flavors back to a bit of vanilla here at the D, and notice how it's really in 4-bar, in a 4-bar sort of range, that you start off with something stable, a little adventure, and then you return to something stable the next 4 bars, a little adventure again, something stable, D major this time, nice and stable. So we can shape that. Let me play the second line from bars 5 to bar 9, okay? Bar 5 to bar 9, so with B minor, G, E7, A7, and D. And that could be a really beautiful resolution. Now D is the relative major of B minor, so it can be even sweeter, perhaps, if you want to, you could play it really dolce, very super dolce, I suppose the B minor could be a bit more, and then the D major. Beautiful. Okay, so now we're at the next 4 bars. We're going to expect a little bit of an adventure again, a little bit more complex in harmonies. So the next bar, I'll give you a moment. I'll give you 10 seconds to try, and it's not much time, but I would normally, if we were one-on-one, I would do, I'd give you all the time you need, but just for the sake of time and having a group of people watching, can you stack these notes into thirds? And I'll give you a clue that there are 4 notes of thirds you can stack in, and I'll give you another clue. If you start from here, you'll get it. So if you start from there, stack in thirds. Don't be afraid to use your fingers, because I still do it as well. A, so A, B, C. So we have A, we have C. From C, C, D, E. And from E, we get E, F, G. A, C, E, G. We need the C sharp there because of the key signature. And that's the chord we get. So we have 4 notes. We have a major triad plus a minor 7. Major triad plus minor 7. That gives us a dominant 7th chord. So we have A7 again. Alright, A7, which is the dominant of D. So we had an A7 earlier, but kept the F sharp in the treble voice. This is the same chord, but if you slide your 4th finger down, now you get it in its pure form of just A, C sharp, E, G. No passing notes at all. Alright, next chord, have a look at this. It doesn't change much. The E goes up to F sharp, and the A natural goes up to A sharp. So it's an absolutely beautiful chord. Now this is a tricky one. Again, it's what he's doing is very subtle with how he manipulates the voices. So my instinct here, I just from knowing, having studied this before, I'll tell you that this is an F sharp dominant 7th chord, but with a twist. So F sharp 7 will have the notes. We have to stack it in thirds. F sharp. So F, G, A, B, C, and it's C sharp because of the key signature. Oh, and it's A sharp because of here. So we've got a major triad plus E. Okay. So he's done a couple of different things here. Well, actually, it's really just one thing here that he's doing that's very interesting. It's this G, because G does not belong in F sharp 7. If I play you a normal F sharp chord, F sharp major chord, sounds like that. So what he's done is he's left this G from the previous chord and he's held it over into the F sharp chord. It's actually F sharp major, not F sharp 7, sorry about that. So F sharp, A sharp, C. But instead of the expected F sharp in that voice, we get a G, just that little twist. Instead of this kind of flat, vanilla chord, it adds a lot of pain. Adding that, keeping that G, smooth voice leading, keeping the G. So that's definitely, we're starting very soft, going to an A7 chord, and then we're going to this F sharp dominance, F sharp chord, F sharp major chord, but with the G inflection. And then F sharp is the dominant of B minor, B, C, D, E, F. It's the 5th above B minor. And so we go to B minor in the next bar. B, D, F sharp. B, D, F sharp. Now, I've only spoken about 3, 4, 8, 12 bars of music. I mean, this is, when you're talking about Barrios, there's lots to talk about. So we go from that painful chord to B minor. So there's a nice resolution. Yeah. You can see this pattern of tension and resolution is just ongoing. It doesn't really stay very static in terms of the tension and resolution for very long. It's just constantly ebbing and flowing with tension and resolution in the harmony. That's what makes this so expressive. That's what makes this prelude so expressive, and knowing exactly which notes produce that can really help. Like when you play when you play this F sharp chord here, you can bring out that G a little bit, and it really brings out the pain a little bit. Okay, and then we resolve to B minor. So there's the next 4 bars. You can see 4-bar patterns here. It's pretty much like 4-bar phrasing, which is very common in music. 4-bar phrasing. 4-bar phrasing, you might think, why 4 bars? 4 bars happens to be an amount of time which is quite, doable in one breath. If you were to sing something, 4 bars is a nice length. Usually that's one reason. Okay, so next, next 4 bars. So I've talked about this pattern of within each 4 bars, the first is stable, and then we go on an adventure. So we're going to just expect that most of the time. So what do we see here? Can you stack that one in thirds? Yeah, I'll give you a clue. If you start on that note there, on the B, you'll get B, and then D, and then F sharp. So B minor again. This piece is in the key of B minor, so it's not too surprising that B minor is so common. So far we've had 1, 2, 3 B minors, I think, or 4. Yeah, 4 B minor chords. 1 bar 1, 1 in bar 5, and then 1 in bar 12, and 1 in bar 13. So 4 out of 13 bars is about a third. So important to know the root, the home key triad B minor. It will happen a lot. And now we get this slightly different voicing. So in this B minor in bar 12, let me make sure that's bar 12. Yes, bar 12. This B minor chord had the D on the 12th fret of the 4th string. Barrios changes it to the open D, so you just lift your third finger. Gives a very different effect. It's like all of a sudden we just plunge down. You know, we're up here and then plunging down. So that might be the note that you want to bring out, is that low, that kind of octave. And then that note goes up drastically to this G sharp for this next chord, which is a beautiful C sharp 7 chord. C sharp dominant 7. So if we stack in thirds from C sharp, C, D, E is next. We see an E sharp making it a major. If you think of C sharp major, if you think of C major, you go C, D, E is your major third. Think of C sharp major, just everything's upper half step. So C sharp, D sharp, E sharp. So C sharp to E sharp is a major third. And then we get a G sharp. I don't see the score. Oh! Thank you, Frank. I've been on the wrong screen for a little while now, so sorry about that. Thanks for the warning there. Okay. How's that? Do you see it now? Let me know, please. Well, I've been talking about these chords probably for a little while. So just a quick recap now that you hopefully can see the score. Maybe I'll go from bar 13 again. So I talked about that. It's starting, the 4-bar phrase is restarting again. The D that was in bar 12, which was on the 12th fret here, that now dropped down an octave, lifting your third finger. So that's the note you might want to bring out. And then now we're at this next chord, which is a C sharp dominant 7. All right, thanks Frank for the confirmation. Great. So C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, and we have one more third to make it a 7th. We need 4 notes for a 7th chord. We have B. Okay, C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, B. So we have C sharp dominant 7, a major triad plus a minor 7th. Major triad here, C sharp, E sharp, G sharp. It's like C major, C, E, G, all upper half step. Yeah, plus B. So we're adding that like that. So C sharp dominant 7. Now we would expect C sharp dominant 7, we would expect it to go to its tonic. So if C sharp was the 5th, then the tonic would be F sharp major. So we would expect this to go to F sharp major, right? Right, that you can you hear how that's sort of like what you expect, yeah? But he goes instead, and then he gives you, so he delays the resolution, right? So I would even mark that. This is delayed resolution, yeah? And the way he's doing that, if you look at the voice leading, every note is the same except the G sharp. So the G sharp goes down to G natural, and that's going to give us a very interesting chord now, which I'll just mention, and it takes a while to describe it. So this is called an augmented 6th chord, because and I'll have I'll put up a resource for you about this chord in itself, because it's just to explain it takes a little while. So if you look, the characteristic of an augmented sixth chord is the augmented sixth interval. So from G to E is a sixth, G, A, B, C, D, E. But we've gone from G natural to E sharp. So that creates an augmented sixth. So we have an augmented sixth chord as a result of that. It's usually a predominant. It will usually come before the dominant chord of a key. So he's doing that exactly as we predict, because the next chord is F sharp 7, which is the dominant chord of B minor. B, C, D, E, F is the fifth. F sharp 7. Okay, so we go to that. So there can be a bit of a resolution. We've gone from, so we went from B minor, again, stable at the start. We went to C sharp 7, which we expect to go to, to F sharp, to the dominant, to the root of C sharp. We expect C sharp to go, if that's the 5 chord, we expect it to go to F, because F, G, A, B, C, right? But he delays that resolution using this chromatic passing note. G sharp to G natural creates an augmented sixth chord, and then we finally get the F sharp 7, a little bit of resolution at the end of the phrase. I like to do a bit of a crescendo up to this C sharp, and then because of that descending chromatic line in the middle there, G sharp to G natural to F sharp, I like to just gradually get softer through that. So if I play those 4 bars again, I should start softer, and then louder, a bit softer, bringing out the G natural a bit, and then even softer. That's the resolution we've been waiting for. Okay, now the next 4 bars, again we expect the expectation. We want to start, we're expecting the start of the next 4 bars to be stable, to start on a stable chord, and then adventure. But you'll see here how he actually changes it a little bit. So we go from F sharp 7 to E minor 7 next. Alright, so not a stable chord. A 7th chord is not stable. And it's E minor, which is not a root note chord, right? It's not a tonic chord. So far we've had either B minor or D major, which you could classify as a sort of a tonic chord. So now it's E minor 7. So E minor, if we stack in thirds from E, G, B, and 7th chord has 4 notes. So D, E, G, B, D. See all those notes there? E, G, B, and D up the top. So it's actually now going what you would expect from F sharp dominant 7th. You would expect a resolution, but instead you can grow here to the E minor 7th chord. Alright. So E minor 7th, and then we're getting a similar pattern here to above. We're getting this, actually the same chord. If you have a look at this chord here, C sharp, we have a G sharp, E sharp, E sharp, and B. So they're the same chord. We get C sharp dominant 7th again. All right. And then this is C sharp dominant 7th once again. We have the same notes. If I write them down again for you, C sharp, remember 7th chord has 4 notes, and if it's a dominant 7th, it's a major triad plus a minor 7th. So C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, there's our major triad, plus B is the minor 7th above C sharp. Okay, so we have those notes. B is now in the bass. So that puts it into 3rd inversion. We haven't talked about inversions because they'll just add another layer, which I think is too many layers to talk about. But you know, once you've got that chord stacked in thirds, then you know what the chord is. If you do want to figure out the inversion, just look at the bass note, and if you have the notes laid out like this, it's pretty straightforward. You know, if C sharp was in the bass, it would be root. E sharp were in the bass, it would be first. If G sharp were in the bass, it would be second. And if B were in the bass, as it is here, it's 3rd inversion. So that is also a movable chord. Now this time I'm not going to forget to change my screen back. It's a movable chord, this one. If you do a full bar on the 9th fret and you put your 2nd finger on the 3rd string on E sharp, you get this chord, and I think you'll know it if we shift this down. So that's C sharp, the root notes up the top here. So this will be C7, C dominant 7. This would be B dominant 7, B flat, dominant 7, A dominant 7, G sharp or A flat dominant 7, G7, F sharp 7, F7, and E7. So if you play a regular E7 chord like that, and you lift off your 3rd finger, do that, and then shift it up a fret, bar the 1st fret, then you have F7, and then that shape you put into the 9th position. So find the 9th fret, and there's the chord. Alright, so there's that chord, C sharp dominant 7 in 3rd inversion. C sharp 7. So C sharp 7 is the dominant of the dominant. So C sharp dominant 7 is the dominant of F sharp. So remember F, G, A, B, C. So it's called the dominant of the dominant. We've got 5 of 5. And it's a very common chord to use, the dominant of the dominant. Okay, so we expect 5 of 5. We expect to go to 5, which it does here. It goes to F sharp. We expect it to go to the 5th chord. Let me simplify it for you. If we were in the key of C, we wanted to go to G. We could, instead of going straight to G, we could use the dominant. So G is the dominant of C, right? That's the 5th. But instead of going straight to G, we could go to the dominant of G. So if you count up from G, G, A, B, C, D. So you'd have D. So that would be 5 of 5. So it's just sort of a simpler way to think about it. C to G. Now I'll put the D chord in. And you can see how it sort of pushes you to that 5 chord a bit more. There's a bit more leading into it, and that's what's happening here, but in the key of B minor. You know, B minor is the root, F sharp is the dominant, right? The 5th. So B, C, D, E, F. Now we count up 5 from F, F, G, A, B, C. So if we put a C sharp in there, right? Now we're talking about chords here. So if we played B minor and then F sharp, right? That's tonic and dominant. But if we put a C sharp major chord in between, dominant of the dominant, it's really important. I think I spoke earlier about thinking in thirds. It's really important. And I think the other number that is very important is 5ths as well. Lots of 5ths happen, 5ths and thirds. 5ths from a definitely a harmonic standpoint, you know, looking at one chord to another, you get lots of tonic and dominance happening. And from an interval standpoint, thinking in thirds is really important, because that's the structure that makes chords. All right. So we end on the F sharp there, C sharp. So C sharp 7, we started quite loud here, quite tense with E minor 7, and then we went to C sharp 7, and then we went to C sharp 7 in third inversion, and then we went all the way up to, and then he goes up to the F sharp 7. I think to me it's just, it keeps on building up. Harmonically, the dominant of the dominant is a tense chord, and then the big leap up in the melody. Notice how static the melody is here. It goes from D, moves down a semitone, it stays, and then you get a big leap from C sharp to F sharp, which is a fifth. Alright, big interval. So I think that's it's sort of a high point in a way in the piece at that point. Alright, so we've reached the dominant, the F sharp chord here, and we return. We really feel a sense. If you had to sort of give this piece some kind of a form, you could say that now we kind of enter a B section, because it starts at very similar way to the A section. So we start to, we have this feeling of recapitulation, of repeating something we've already heard, because then we go back to the B minor. So basically these 4 bars here starting bar 21 are the same as the first 4 bars. So I'll just go through them quickly. B minor, and then this was C sharp diminished 7, half diminished 7. That F sharp was a passing note which resolved to the E. That chord stays the same for, yeah, another bar there. For those, whoops, for those 3 bars, C sharp diminished 7th, and then it returns to B minor. Okay. So let me just play those all to refresh your memory. Tension, resolution, leap up to the G, resolution back to B minor. Now we get another change here. So now we get something different. Alright, so what do we have here? What can you stack this into thirds? I'll just tell you the answer. F sharp. If you start there, stack in thirds, F, G, A, and C sharp. So we get an unusual chord here. We have F sharp minor, because F sharp to A is a minor third. I would encourage you, the way that I remember this interval of the minor third is by thinking of scales. So if you've practiced your F sharp minor scale, you'll know that F sharp to A is a minor third, because it's in the minor scale of F sharp. So that creates a minor triad. Minor triad's a minor third plus a perfect fifth above the root. 1, 3, 5. Okay, so we have F sharp minor, a bit of an unusual chord, because if we get an F sharp in the key of B, we expect it to be a major chord or a dominant 7th chord. So to me, this chord is like impending change. It's suggesting something is really taking a turn now from what we heard at the start of the piece. We're going to go somewhere quite different because of that. It's all because of the A natural, really. Because if we went to the dominant, if I have a listen to the minor, F sharp minor, it's just like something is, there's something coming. The storm clouds are approaching, something like that. And then a beautiful chord here. Very interesting, very, very interesting chord here. What have we got? This is very difficult to analyze because we have two notes in the melody, F sharp and E, and if we tried to stack in thirds from either one, we will not really end up with a chord that, anything that stacks in thirds with all of these notes. So here we're open to a bit of interpretation. We have to sort of make a decision about it, basically, about what it could be. It's a bit ambiguous. Wow, so beautiful. It's also the first time that the melody changes within one bar. The melody note has not changed within one bar for the whole piece. It's always the same note. And then new note, E, and then new bar, new note for the whole bar. But here we get the first time that we get this descent there. So I'm going to leave this one for you because I haven't left anything for you to kind of, think about. How would you think about this chord? There is, I think, multiple ways you could think about this chord, and yeah, shoot me a message and I'd love to know what you think about it, because there's not really a right or wrong about it. It's very unclear compared to everything else. Everything else, it's pretty, there's a sort of a more objective answer. So this is a really interesting point. Anyway, if we continue to, oh, so beautiful, these harmonies he's getting into now. He's really tugging at the heart, So this one, I think we can stack this one into thirds here. E, G, B flat, D. E, we have the E there, we have G there, B flat and D, so that stacks in thirds. What does that give us though? Give you a second. I'll give you a clue in multiple steps here. So we have a E, G, B flat. So E, G, B would be E minor. So E, G, B flat, there's a diminished fifth above E, so that makes it a diminished triad. And then we have a minor 7 above E. So we have a diminished triad plus a minor 7. Do you remember what that creates? It's some kind of diminished chord. It's 4 notes. It's not fully diminished. It is half diminished. E half diminished. E half diminished 7. Alright, beautiful chord. And then again we get this descending motive, the note changing within the bar. So I'm pointing this out because it's something I like to point out when I play it. I have to put the screen back here. It's something I like to point out when I'm playing that change there, bringing that melody out, and then he does it again here. A descent. Okay, so how about this chord? What have we got here? I'll give you a clue. This D is a passing note which resolves to the C sharp. So if you stack this in thirds, what do you get? You want to have a moment? If we started on the A sharp, and then we have the C sharp at the top, the resolved note there, and then E, and then G natural, A sharp, C sharp, E, G. So now we have, yet again, we have a diminished triad, but this time the interval from A sharp to G is a diminished seventh. If you think of it this way, A sharp to A sharp is an octave, A sharp to A sharp is an octave, A sharp to A natural would be a major seventh, A sharp to G sharp would be a minor 7, and now A sharp to G natural is a diminished 7th. You work backwards from the octave to work out, especially if it's a note like A sharp. If you did it, let's say you did it from the note G, if you started on a G and you wanted to work out, okay, what's a diminished 7th above G? First of all, it has to be a 7th, it has to be some kind of F. But if you start from the octave G to G, would be an octave, G to F sharp would be a major 7th, G to F would then be a minor 7, so to make a diminished 7th above G, you need an F flat, or the equivalent of an E, but because it's a 7th, it has to be an F, because G, A, B, C, D, E, F, the letters need to match the numbers of a 7th. So if you wanted a diminished 7th above G, it would be F flat. Like that kind of thing, alright? Okay, so we have A sharp diminished 7th. That's quite a tense chord. So we talked earlier about, each 4 bars starting with stability. So this one started with B minor, and then we have an adventure. This one does, it's a very, very, it's a fully diminished 7th chord. A sharp, diminished, fully diminished 7th, with the passing note D going down to the C sharp. Big. That does resolve there. That resolves to B minor. And this is a beautiful, another movable chord you can learn. So have a look at this. So if this is the chord here in the 4th position. You can bar 4 strings of the 4th position. Put your 2nd finger on the 5th string, your 4th finger on the 1st string. Okay, and that will be B minor. The root note is on the 1st string up here. So let's see what happens if we bring this down. So that would be B flat minor, A minor, G sharp or A flat minor. I don't think we can go any further, can we? Yeah, we can. One more. G minor. Yeah? There we go. G minor, B flat, D, G, G like that. Not a very standard chord. B minor. Okay, remember to do this. And then check if we still have some people watching. Oh, I've got some people watching. If you've just joined, please let me know if you have any questions. I'm sure there must be some questions. This is quite a, this piece is not super straightforward to analyze. There's lots of little nuances, which I think is what makes it so expressive. So please do fire away any questions at any time, and I'll try to get to those questions. All right, so we've gone from A sharp diminished in this new phrase, in this new four bar phrase starting in bar 29, the expectation is that in each 4-bar phrase we start with a stable chord and then adventure away to unstable harmonies. But this one is almost the reverse. In the first bar it goes A sharp diminished 7, and then it melodically resolves to, and then we go to B minor. It's a nice point of rest, and then now he almost could have put an A here, you know, melodic A, but he left the B, and I'll show you why I think he left the B instead of went to the A, because he could have gone, but he went. Really beautiful decision to make, I think. So if you had A there, we would have you would be able to figure out what the chord is, really, because without the A there, it's harder to figure it out. But I'll give you a moment. Can you see if the A was there? You know, D sharp, F sharp, A, C. Okay, D sharp. So we're getting a D sharp chord, D sharp, F, D, F, stacking in thirds. We have 4 notes, so it's some kind of 7th chord, A and C. So it's a diminished triad. D sharp to C, natural, is a diminished 7th. So diminished triad plus diminished 7th makes a fully diminished 7th chord. And this one you can, the most common fully diminished 7th chord is this one here, where you go, you have the finger pattern 1, 3, 2, 4, like that. And if you know, like that little passage from Tango in Sky, for example. But if you do that chord shape on the 1st fret, you have D sharp, A, C, F sharp. You actually have these very notes. Okay, D sharp, A, C, F sharp. If you play that chord I just showed you, the same notes but in a different order, which is D sharp diminished 7th. D sharp diminished 7, which moves to its expected chord. So this is borrowing from the key of E minor. It's the 7th chord in E minor. For those of you who are a bit more familiar with harmony, you could write 7 diminished 7 of 4. E minor is the 4th chord in B minor, and 7, we're basically saying we're borrowing the 7th diminished chord of the key of 4, or the key of E minor, B, C, D, E, E minor, 7 of B minor, of E minor, which is D sharp diminished. That basically pulls you into E minor just for a moment. So if I play, and then that's what we get next. The next chord is E minor there. We go to the 1st position, probably the first time in the piece that we've gone to the 1st position. So if I play those 4 chords again, in a quick recap, we have A sharp diminished 7th to B minor, resolution, should write a little bit crescendo, and then D sharp diminished 7, without resolving this passing note of the B, which doesn't fit in there, and then resolution of E minor. Alright. So those are those 4, there are those 4 bars. Okay, we're almost at the end of the piece. So we're restarting again at the 4 bar. There's 4 bar phrases. Every 4 bars is like a new event. So we're going to start, you know, as we expect. For most phrases start at a point of stability, which would be like a tonic chord, like B minor, or maybe D major, which is the relative major. What does he do here? Can you stack that one in thirds? Give that a go. I'll give you a few seconds. Remember, if I were working with you one-on-one, I would let you work it out, you know, give you all the time you need, but in a group setting, I'm just gonna sort of go through this a bit faster. So E, G, B, D, E minor 7. Now the really beautiful thing about this is he does something called a voice crossing, where the melody drops below the accompaniment, or the lower voices. The melodic voice drops underneath the accompaniment, you know, or the lower voices. They swap with each other. Very Tom says some chord sequences sound like they're taken from Chopin. Well, Barrios was influenced by Chopin. You know, he wrote the Mazurka Appassionata, which is basically like if Chopin had written a mazurka for the guitar, and he wrote the valses number 3 and 4, which are very, very similar. So yeah, it's sort of like a mixture of Chopin, you know, romantic harmony combined with Bach, you know, Bach's sort of texture, a prelude, you know, like we got that continuous texture, that moto perpetuo sort of texture, which he keeps going. So anyway, sorry, that was a little detour. E minor 7, and thanks for the comment there, Tom. Any if anyone else has comments or questions, please fire away. E minor 7. So every 4 bars, first bar we expect a chord of resolution. He doesn't give us that here. E minor 7. A 7th chord has 4 notes and does not, you know, that is not stable. It is unstable. And then he's got this beautiful voice crossing where the E drops, the melody drops below the accompaniment. So we have some voice crossing there. All right, in small letters, voice cross. All right. Okay, so that's a really beautiful moment. Now, although harmonically we get a chord of tension, an unstable chord, because the melody drops so low, I like to keep the decrescendo going. I like to play it very softly. So if we go, I'll go from bar 32 here. So we go. Keep it nice and soft. I like to do that. And then you see the melody drops up, rises up. Rises up higher next here. Goes up a 5th again, quite a big leap for the melody to do. And here we get a G chord, G, B, D, a G triad. And this is a very common shape on the guitar. Where are we? So if you take that chord here in the 7th position, you could put your 2nd finger. I'll show you this chord if you shift it down. I think you'll recognize it. C major. So if you get your C major chord and do 4-3-2 instead of 2-3-1, do 4-3-2, and then you shift those fingers all up and do a half bar, and you get D flat or C sharp major, and then D major, D sharp or E flat major, E major, F major, F sharp major, and G. And that's what we have. That's what we have here. G major, G, B, D. Right, stack in thirds. A triad only has 3 notes. A major triad only has 3 notes. 7th chords have 4 notes. Okay, and then we get this, again, the melody drops down below, we get voice crossing, melody drops down below the accompaniment. And that's a beautiful chord, especially in this voicing with the open E and open B and open E strings. Very beautiful. So what do we have there? If we start on the C sharp, we get we can stack that in thirds. C sharp, E, G, B, and then we get our diminished triad, and we get a minor seventh, so it's a half diminished seventh chord again. C sharp, half diminished seventh. If it was a B flat, if it were a B flat like that, it would be fully diminished seventh. In this case, it's half diminished seventh. C sharp, half diminished seventh with the voice crossing, goes back up here. A chord shape that you're probably familiar. If you put that chord shape down, you end up with this, you know, barre chord here. Probably familiar with that, and that's definitely a movable one. In the seventh position, that's B is the root note, so it's B minor. Okay, so the G, you know, going up with the melody, and we go down, and then we go up, even though it's B minor and it's stable. Sometimes you need to look at the melody, and the interaction between melody and harmony will sometimes change things up a little bit. So harmonically B minor is stable, but melodically the E is going up to the B, so it's intensifying, plus the B minor chords in second inversion. So if you put a chord into inversion, it makes it less stable as well. Okay, B minor. Alright, and we're at the start of a new phrase. We're almost at the end of this movement, and I'll probably have to finish at the end of this movement. So what do we get next? We get another drop. Oh, another beautiful chord. And again, he uses this chord quite a bit. It's C sharp, half diminished seventh. C sharp, half diminished with the slash. Right, we have C sharp, E, G, and B. Right, if you stacked it in thirds, C sharp, E, G, B, diminished triad plus minor seventh above the root. Okay, so we're starting, you know, with B minor, and then we drop the melody down to E, and then he goes, now he puts the melody up a little bit. We get to a B minor chord. Oh, sorry. With the F sharp on the second string. Now if it's not a very common shape, so don't worry about that. B minor, B, D, F sharp, and then here is another gorgeous moment. This is the kind of thing, Tom, that I think Chopin likes to do. He leaves some things unresolved sometimes. So this chord is, again, C sharp, half diminished seventh, probably one of the most common chords Barrios uses in this piece. So we would expect, in that chord, we would expect C sharp, E, G, B flat. Now instead of E, we have the F sharp there, which you... Oh, no. Sorry, I'm not playing the G there. Sorry, I'm playing the wrong chord. That's the one. It just leaves it unresolved. You know, he could have resolved to E down here and gone like that, but he's left it. He kind of resolves it here, but now he's changing the melody up again. So there's the C sharp diminished seventh chord still up until that point, and then he goes to what I would say is B minor with a C sharp passing note there. Kind of, but it's just, you know, it's so poetic, it's not really easy to describe it. And then C sharp diminished again. We have the notes C sharp, E, G, B, C sharp diminished, half diminished seventh, diminished triad plus a minor seventh. Again, same chord, same notes, yeah. C sharp, E, G, B, and then we get an F sharp seventh chord, so the dominant of B minor, F sharp 7, so we need 4 notes, F sharp, A, C sharp, and E, face, F sharp, A, C sharp, E, but we have a suspended 4th, which resolves here to the 3rd, 4 to 3, so you can really make a nice moment. And then, now we expect that to go to the dominant, to the tonic, to the root B minor, but he kind of doesn't quite give you that because of this G, right? We have B minor, B and a B and a D, but we have a G there instead of F. He goes to the, keeps the G, doesn't resolve it, and then this is, I don't know, this C sharp is just like a way of passing through. I don't really, you know, you could analyze this in multiple different ways. You could call it a G chord, or you could call it C sharp diminished 7th again, but it's a bit too ambiguous to make a clear decision about it, which is what makes it so beautiful. There we kind of get a G chord. You can sort of, that's a bit clearer. G there, and then there we get the C sharp diminished 7th chord again, C sharp half diminished 7, C sharp, it's actually stacked for you right there in thirds, C sharp, E, G, B, and you can play that stacked like that, or whatever fingering you want to use, and then sounds like an arpeggio, which it kind of is. It's F sharp 7, just as a descending arpeggio. Stack in thirds with me. F sharp, A sharp. We need a major triad, so C sharp and E face with the A sharp. Major dominant 7th is a major triad with a minor 7th above. I will share some resources with you guys that will help you practice these things that I'm talking about, like dominant and tonic and triads. That's what I'll send to you. And then finally we get B minor without any blemishes, you could say. The cadence, interestingly enough, so you get this B minor arpeggio going up and down, and then that creates an E minor chord, and then an F sharp dominant 7th, and then B minor to end. Alright, there you go. I'll just do a quick sort of summary of everything. Okay, so I'll play through and I'll just summarize the chords and the tension and the resolution, things like that. Alright, so we started up here in B minor. Then we go to a C sharp half diminished 7th chord, but keeping the F sharp, which then resolves 4/3 suspension resolution, the 3rd bar, now 4th bar, that goes up to a G. You take your fourth finger out of position, which makes that a little tricky to play. And then bar 5, back to B minor resolution. Then we get a G chord with the F sharp unresolved, and then we go to E7, which is the dominant of D major, to A7, which is the dominant of D major, which I'm playing with a bit of tension, and then a resolution at D. Now I'm at bar 9, D major, and then we get an A7 chord, and then we get an F sharp dominant 7 chord, but with keeping the G in there, which is a painful note, and then resolution to B minor, and then he drops in bar 13, he drops the D down an octave in the middle voice, and then we go to C sharp dominant 7th, which is major, which is why the E sharp's there, and then he just changes the G sharp to a G natural, creating an augmented 6th chord and delaying the resolution. And then we get the dominant F sharp 7, dominant B minor. Next phrase starts in E minor 7, E minor 7, so it's starting quite strong harmonically. And then C sharp 7, dominant 7. Again, C sharp dominant 7, which is the dominant of the dominant, and then the dominant F sharp 7, and B minor resolution, C sharp diminished 7. It's like the B section, because we hear the same 4 bars as the start. It climbs up to the G, and then down, resolution. F sharp minor, it's like impending doom. Everything's going to start going down from here. An ambiguous chord, which I would like you to label if you can. E diminished 7. Now I'm at bar 29. The melody's just climbing down and down. A sharp diminished 7th. B minor resolution, D sharp diminished 7th tension, leaving the B unresolved, resolution, E minor, voice crossing E minor 7, melody goes way down, below the accompaniment, G with a big leap in the melody, and then a big leap down, C sharp diminished 7, and then B minor, big leap up again, big leap down again, and then B minor, a bit of rest, C sharp diminished 7, unresolved, F sharp, little ambiguous here, C sharp diminished 7th, 2 chord to the 5 with a suspension, 4-3, and then B minor, but with the G that just gives it some pain. Make sure I'm still running here because my computer's gone quiet. Usually it's the fan's gone. Okay, and there it goes. We just get these arpeggios going up and down, basically, is the way I like to think of it. B minor, arpeggio. E minor chord with the harmonics. 4, 5, F sharp 7, B minor. Alright, so that's just a sort of a quick walk through all of that. So the resources I'll send to you, I'm going to send to you triads so that you can practice triads, and that can really help you with the fluency of learning to think in thirds, learning to identify triads. So I'll send you triads, and I'll send you dominant and tonic progressions to practice as well, so that you can get very good at thinking in thirds and thinking in fifths, because those are the really important things to do. So what I mean by triads is like something like in B minor, practicing the triads like this. What would the next one be? I think I missed one, but like that. That's what I missed. Right, practicing triads like that, and then the dominant and tonic, you'd practice something like that, right? Tonic in B minor, dominant in B minor, tonic, and obviously you do that in multiple keys, so you get fluent with the different keys, and then I think that will help quite a bit. So, all right, I think I'll finish there. I don't see any more comments or questions. If you do leave a question and I'm done with, because there's about a 20-second delay between the time you submit something and the time that I see it, so if you leave a question and I don't answer it, then I'll try to answer it later, or you can send me an email. Happy to answer questions if I can, but I will have to finish there now. So I hope you've enjoyed that analysis of the first movement of La Catedral. It's by no means a very straightforward analysis, because it's not a straightforward piece of music. It's very, very subtle. What Barrios does with the harmonies is very subtle, and that's, I think, what makes it so beautiful. So thank you. Thanks for the comment. Yeah, shoot me an email, and I'll send you guys a link with those resources, and I hope that helps. All right, so thank you. Thanks for the comments. Yeah, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, and I'll send you guys a score. What you might have to how can we do this? Because some of you I know, and some of you I don't know. So the people I don't know, I'm not sure how I'm going to get these resources to you. Let me think about this for a second. I will put it in this link. Okay, I'll add them to my free materials link. Okay, so if you guys go to this link here, if you guys go to that link, give me a little while to put together those materials, and like to upload to upload them there. If you visit that link, if you're not on the Harmony That Matters mailing list, then please visit this link in maybe in the next 24 hours, and I'll have it up, and or you can send me an email or a message at my contact page. If you'd like to just correspond, you can do that at the contact page. I do have a online hub called Harmony That Matters, where I keep all these live streams, and I have lots of resources and method books and exercises and things in harmony, and it's constantly being updated with new things. And so maybe I'll leave a link for that as well. If you're interested, you can check it out. There's a free mailing list, and you get a few sort of freebies there as well, but the live stream here gives you a bit of an idea of it as well, what to expect. So all right, thanks so much everyone, and I'll be in touch again. I'll be online probably next month, if not a bit earlier. Well, definitely in April, because we only have a couple of days in March left. So I'll be back on next month, and I'll let you guys at Harmony That Matters know when that is. And thanks for joining. Please, if there's anything you want me to analyze next, please let me know. I'll keep tabs of that, and stay safe and healthy during these times. And I know you probably have a lot of time to spend online now, and maybe you're stuck inside. So I hope you can kind of keep yourself healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and not be too worried about what's happening. It will pass. It will it'll all pass away soon. So all the very best to you all, and thanks for joining, and I'll be back next month. Cheers.